All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today I'll be doing my Week 11 preview and prediction for some of the midweek games on Thursday and Friday. Four contests to discuss, some major ones as well when it comes to implications in respective conferences. Getting things started with the UTSA Roadrunners traveling to Tampa to take on USF. South Florida looking to overcome what was a stunning loss against Memphis in a game they should have won. A big rally there at the end by Memphis where it seemed like they got way too complacent on offense and it allowed the Tigers to rally in that one, and they ended up missing a kick at the buzzer where they could have sent it to overtime for USF. This is a very good team. They've been running the football incredibly well. It felt like once they got into conference play, they'd really start piling it up on opponents, and they've put up 259 yards rushing in every single game in conference play, 4 in a row now. On the season, we're sitting at 225.5 yards. Byron Brown at quarterback. This guy's such a good runner, elite in that regard. Hasn't been the most accurate passer. Has been very sporadic with his accuracy in decision making. 63% and 6 picks. Does average about 245 yards per game. 17 touchdowns. Has a nice group of receivers. Chaz Nimrod, they're hoping to have back healthy at some point here. Keyshawn Singleton's a big play receiver. Jeremiah Koger, Christian Neptune, some of the younger cats, though, have been really stepping up this year for USF, especially here in conference play. Great room, though, of running backs. Alvon Isaac, Sam Franklin lead the way. It's really been a by-committee approach in that facet. For UTSA, this is a team I picked to win the American in the preseason. They've been pretty disappointing sitting at 4-4, but this past week against Tulane, they finally showcased the potential they're capable of playing with, especially on offense. We're been a bit of a bumpy slate. I mean, they lost to Temple a couple weeks ago. To start off October, that is, where they only had 300 yards of offense. Colorado State, they only beat by a point on the road. Got blitzed against North Texas, only put up 329 yards of offense against a pretty weak defense. So it's just been a disaster, really, for UTSA. Their offense finally came alive, though. 523 yards of offense. Owen McCown put on an elite performance. 31 to 33, 374 touchdowns. It's one of the best performances you'll see from a quarterback all year. 4 interceptions for him on the season. He has a nice group of receivers that can allow him to really push the ball downfield. Devin McEwen, A.J. Wilson's emerged as a big play weapon all of a sudden. David Amador's great. Robert Henry in the backfield's an explosive player. So they should have balance on offense most weeks, but it's been hard for them to find that consistency. Going up against the USF team that has a great defense, they're really good against the run. It's really hard for opponents to generate much in that realm. Memphis, they really struggled to run the football, 129 yards in that one. But this pass defense has been a problem, and for the most part, I thought it was just them, having opponents play from behind, and Memphis was another one playing from behind. But the game, even in crunch time, they were unable to get stops. 321 pass yards for Memphis in that one. Statistically, this is one of the worst pass defenses in the country, and that can be a problem going against this high-powered offense. 272 yards per game they allow. They do have a boatload of talented players, though. Jarvis Lee at corner is really good. Fred Gaskin has been a very impressive safety. Deshaun Rucker, I'm a fan of. But more importantly, the guys in the front seven, Jalen Schuler at linebacker, Mac Harris, these guys are two elite linebackers. You also have Rico Watson, who's a very impressive player, who has, attributes that can be successful anywhere on the field for them. Have a nice deep defensive line. I mean, this is a good defense, but it was kind of shocking to see them really struggle to get stops against Memphis late in that one when they really needed them. The offense was stalling out. They did have 3 sacks in that one. It's a pretty respectable pass rush. USF was able to force a lot of turnovers as well this year. 17 total gain. They do have a bit of a problem, USF, in terms of turnover margin. I've seen them. The last 2 weeks have been fine, but they had 9 turnovers in 2 games against Charlotte and North Texas there. So hopefully they can stay solid in that area, but that's been a bit of a problem for them at times. I think UTSA can hang around in this one. Are they going to win? I don't think so. I also don't know if they're going to lose by 14. I think it's a little potentially overblown with that spread, but the UTSA defense, I think, is an abysmal unit, quite frankly. That's a big reason why they've had so many struggles this year, especially against the run, and I think this is going to be another area where they're going to struggle in that area. They played very well against Tulane, though. Was a home game for them, a nice bounce-back opportunity after a bye week, so maybe you can see improved play collectively for the rest of the year. But I definitely think that they're probably going to struggle in this game as USF just is on a different level when it comes to running the football. So I'm going to take USF to get the job done 42-31 in this one. I definitely think it will be a very interesting game going down in Tampa. Moving to Houston and UCF. Houston coming off a crushing loss at home to West Virginia. They're like 20-point favorites in that one. And their defense looked awful. It was very shocking to see and very upsetting as well because I'm a fan of this Cougars team. I watched them play ball this year. Gave up 400 yards of offense in that one. Got blitzed on the ground. Had some awful turnovers on offense as well. Just upsetting performance altogether. The run defense has been inconsistent. That's only really the third time maybe 4 games, you could point to. They've really struggled to defend the run. UCF, this is a team that is very odd because, we haven't really seen them a whole lot this year just because it hasn't been very important games to watch. And, they've kind of been taking a bit of a back burner here in Scott Frost's return to Orlando. They only had 225 yards of offense last week at Baylor, and that's one of the worst defenses in the Big 12. But they did go off against West Virginia for almost 600, 400 before that against Cincinnati in a close loss. So they've had some consistency when it comes to balance so far in conference play. Last year or last week, that was a bit of an outlier. But for the most part, they're able to run the football quite well. Miles Montgomery leads the charge, 191 yards per game for this offense on the ground. And then Taven Jackson has been all right for them at quarterback. Wasn't all that good against Baylor. 2 picks, complete about 54%. For Houston, though, you got to anticipate a bounce-back performance. This is about a 1-point line here. Dean Connors, nice physical running back. Connor Wigman as well is very impactful in the run game for the most part this year. He's been a pretty good passer. Did his best at 309 yards, 4 touchdowns. Did have 2 bad interceptions, one that I'm pretty sure was a pick six as well. So didn't get his best football, but this is a team that was shockingly playing from behind the entire afternoon. Amari Thomas has been a nice emergence as a big play weapon at receiver. Tanner Kazile, one of the best tight ends in the country as well. UCF, they've been competitive this year, especially on the defensive side of the ball. For all the new starters they had to insert, 308 yards per game allowed, pretty fair number. They've competed quite well in conference play, a lot better than they probably should against some of these other opponents. So this is not the worst defense in the world. They can come and be competitive. They're led by Lewis Carter, Cole Kozlowski at linebacker. Philip Dunham in the secondary is a pretty good player. And then Malachi Lawrence and Ajit Kelly. These are 2 really good edge rushers. This is an offensive line for Houston. It's not all that great. So I think these edges can definitely create some pressure. They could potentially put Wigman in this offense behind schedule. That's one of the best aspects of this entire football team for UCF is those edges. I'm going to take Houston to win in a close affair, 27-20. I definitely think they're the better team. And I think last week was definitely odd and a bit of a fluke. And I think that hopefully they can put that one behind them and they can continue the surge and try and stay at the top of this conference. A 1-point spread though is interesting, so I'm gonna take the road team to cover that one -1.5. Get the job done in Orlando. I think it will be competitive and close though. I think UCF's really not all that bad. Despite that loss against Baylor. And maybe for them, that's also uncharacteristic. So a bit of an odd game of both teams coming off losses that probably shouldn't have been as lopsided as they were. Moving to another game on Friday night, Northwestern and USC. The Wildcats have been a very respectable team in their own right this year, sitting at 5 wins. They've been good on offense. The defense has played well. This is not that bad of a football team for Northwestern. 22.5 points per game. Certainly not the greatest of numbers. Preston Stone has been awful when it comes to efficiency and interceptions. He's got 9, completing, less than 60%. The run game, though, has been shockingly good. About 188 yards per game. Caleb Kamalifi at running back has really emerged. Joseph Hyman has also been able to put some efficient performances together. Going up against the USC defense, who, against the run, they've been really up and down. They've been good at home. Like when they played Michigan many weeks back, they stonewalled them. But when they played Notre Dame on the road, they got killed. Against Nebraska, they started off sluggish, and as the game wore on, they really started to improve on the early downs. And that's where USC needs to be successful. And if they can do that, then this defense can really compete. But it's just so up and down, hot and cold with this team. The defensive front is very capable. Jakeem Stewart, the freshman's been playing good. Devon Tompkins as well. Braylon Shelby, Cameron Crawford, and you also have a great linebacker in Eric Gentry. I think for USC, this secondary just lacks a lot of talent. Griffin Wild is a good receiver, and I think he might be able to spark some big plays. I'm a USC fan, so no pick from me. Nick, if you're a subscriber, typically does these episodes with me. Not available tonight, so he went and picked the game for us, 35-17, in favor of the Trojans. I definitely think the USC's offense is in for a bounce back, though. Jade Mayava did not play a good game at Nebraska. You had some mistakes against Notre Dame as well. Coming back home, I think is going to do wonders for him in this offense, where they just play lights out when they're in LA compared to being on the road. Makai Lemons scratching to get involved. Jacoby Lane as well. Lake McCree at tight end. I mean, this is a great group of weapons. The run game's also been highly impressive for USC. King Miller has been such an unsung hero the last 3 games for the Trojans, averaging 7.8 yards per carry. That's a legit number, too. He's getting a lot of carries, 18 exactly in 3 straight, so it's a very fair number from him. I think the USC is probably going to put up more than 35, quite frankly. And again, they're just so good in LA. So interesting game there. USC over 2 touchdown favorites. Make of that of what you wish. If you think the defense is going to play well in the trenches, then they're probably going to cover the spread because their offense is definitely going to play well in this game. Moving to the final game, Tulane and Memphis, another one of those key games in the American. Tulane, with that loss to UTSA, very stunning. I didn't really feel like early on in the year, though, this team was all that good, and they were proving me wrong because they were winning games. And it was kind of shocking to see. They were able to beat Duke. Um, there's another game here against Northwestern that I thought that the Wildcats would be able to win. Ole Miss crushed them, though. They barely beat Tulsa, and they kind of been skating by since with wins over ECU and Army. So it really wasn't that shocking to see them get blown out last week. But their defense just could not get a stop. I read off the numbers earlier for Owen McGowan. I mean, they gave up almost 100% completion rating to the other quarterback. Their run defense wasn't all that good. At Memphis, they can torch you apart with their balance. Brendan Lewis is doing a lot better this year, and I thought he would as a passer, showing great command of the offense, 69%, 207 yards per game. Cortez Braham, Jamari Hawkins, Marcelo Busey. I mean, these are three really respectable receivers. I love what they have in the backfield as well. Of course, it's spearheaded by Lewis as the top rusher, 562 and 8 scores. Sutton Smith, Greg DeRozas Jr., Frank Peasant last week had a hat trick, so they're pretty deep at the running back position, even though Peasant's really just going to be a goal line guy. A lot of explosiveness here. This is a tough offense to slow down because they have such impressive balance going up against the Tulane defense, who has really been rubbish the entire season. Haven't been awful, but not great. I alluded to that game last week, was not good one bit. They did well against Army, held them 233 rushing yards, about the season average, and then some other games. They've not been as good in Duke. It's a good offense, playing from behind, put up 450, and then South Alabama on a close affair in a game they probably also should have lost. So I just don't think this Tulane team is really all that good. I don't think the Memphis defense is anything special either. They were able to get stops, though, in that second half against USF that allowed them to win the game. Played a lot better than I thought they would against Rice as well, held them to 212 yards. Struggled bad against UAB. Teams really seem to pick them apart with balance. They're just up and down as well because they've had some really strong performances this year, especially when it comes to defending the run. So I think they'll do it well. Sam Brumfield's a phenomenal linebacker. Jalen Bell in the interior. Drew Watts alongside him at linebacker. They have some very good players on this side of the ball. I think we're going to see a bit of a higher scoring affair in this one. I think Memphis 38-30. I think that Jake Retzloff and his legs in this rushing attack that puts up 175 a game, they're going to have something for him here. I think Summerall's a good coach, and I think they can have a much better showing than they did last week. No, I don't think that Tulane really is that good of a team. So I think Memphis, the cover 5.5 is the best bet. Opened at 7.5 and it's came down. That's fine by me. I'll go ahead and take that one all day. 55.5 is the total. I think it's a pretty good smash as well. So 9 p.m. Eastern time, Friday night. Another massive clash in the American. So I think these are some really respectable games. Some nice betting tips here. I think we're in for a pretty good Thursday and Friday night slate. All these games are pretty important. You have 2 games in the American that are really going to dictate how the rest of the season will go. You have Houston looking to bounce back as slight favorites, and then USC, high-flying offense, looking to pile on some numbers before they enter a daunting stretch that'll make or break their season. With Iowa and Oregon on the horizon as a team that could sneak into the playoffs. So very interesting stuff. It's going to be for today's episode. If you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.